Welcome back, everybody. Let's get into it today because today I'm going to give you a full prediction of what's happening or what will happen during the Ripple Swell event in New York City. Let's get into some of the breaking news. One of the major developments, of course, Ripple announced this morning in terms of a launch of a digital asset spot prime brokerage. This will be services in the United States, and it's going to be through Ripple Prime. So this is a big game changer because it starts to put Ripple into an institutional infrastructure stack that will most likely focus on announcing this at Swell. I think they'll go into some more detail on this. And also, if you look at why it matters, I think the biggest reason is this is the first company to offer a complete prime brokerage suite, spot, derivatives, and FX. You also look at the institutional clients can now trade spot and digital assets, full compliance. And then you consider the RLUSD play for collateral, especially with Metaco for custody. And we'll talk about their acquisitions and why all of this has been lining up for years. And what's interesting to me is this is in direct competition with prime brokers such as, guess who? Goldman and Morgan Stanley. And I anticipate we will start to see a lot more. And remember, there's a lot of speakers coming on the Swell stage this year. And I think that will be a significant tell on where this is going in terms of how these partnerships will align and also how maybe the strategic component could be played into. So let's kind of recap a little bit about their acquisition strategy, which I think has been brilliant up to this point, and I anticipate we're going to see some more. I really think we're going to see either some year-end closes or possibly some announcements early 2026. But what Ripple is doing is they're building a full stack financial infrastructure. And if you think about the spending spree, I think it was like 2.4, almost 2.5 billion in terms of acquisitions. You look at the first acquisition, which of course was custody, and that was Metaco. And remember, they're used by Citi, HSBC, PNB Paribas, so a whole slew of pretty significant partners and asset tokenization. This, of course, is standard custody. This is get into the XRP ledger focus. I think that will be a huge component. That's the foundation of much of what they're trying to do. The trading infrastructure is interesting here because the prime brokerage, which is obviously going to be derivatives, FX swaps, this is hidden road. And you add in the component of spot trading, which is new. This would complete the trading stack. And I think that is pretty big because that could mean anywhere between 3 to 4 trillion plus annual clearing volume. Then you look at how many customers they're going to get. Well, they're going to get about 300 plus institutional customers day one. I think that is a major factor of how some of this will start to play out in a very quick fashion, and timing is very critical here. The stablecoin infrastructure, of course, this was acquired through Rail, which was cross-border payments. Again, RLUSD will play into that with full enterprise stablecoin, obviously with BNY Mellon as the custody partner. And let's not forget legacy cross-border systems as well. So that's going to get into Ripple payments. If you get into the corporate treasury integration, because you're going to need that, well, you've got treasury management, and you're going to need that through someone like, oh, let me think, GTreasury. That's got Fortune 500 clients. Plus, if you look at their cash management and their FX systems, that gets into crazy upside for Ripple. And it starts to play into a strategy that I think has been one that Garlinghouse and the Ripple team have been putting together for quite some time. And it's almost like chess moves. Every other crypto company out there picked pretty much one lane: Coinbase, exchange; Circle, stablecoin; BitGo, custody; Galaxy, digital trading. But Ripple says, nah, let's go out and spend $2.5 billion and do it all. And I think that's what they are now getting ready to really start to implement full stack. And you can't have a prime brokerage without spot trading. Now they have it. You can't scale without stablecoins. That's already been done with RLUSD. And you can't integrate with corporate without a treasury tool. And that's, of course, going to be GTreasury. So if you don't have those, then you can't serve institutions without custody. That's going to be Metaco. So all this is a blueprint. It's a blueprint that has been enacted over the last several years. And part of it, of course, all hinged on Hidden Road. Remember, Ripple Prime now being called Ripple Prime. That's a $1.25 billion acquisition. That was April of 2025. It closed just last month in October. And what it means, it's the first crypto company to own a global asset prime brokerage, multi-asset prime brokerage, if you think about that. And if you think about the metrics, 3 to 4 trillion annually, 300 plus institutions, this is an unstoppable component. And I think as we start to ponder what would be next for crypto, and especially what would be next for Ripple, the strategic impact around this starts to layer into institutional finance integration. And this is something we've talked about for a long time. Wall Street is here now. The key is what companies are going to be layered into this. It's almost as if Ripple knew they were going to get through this lawsuit. It's almost as if they had a runway of services to be acquired to be ready for this time right now with these kinds of tool sets. You look at RLUSD as a collateral for prime brokerage products. You also look at access to derivatives and swaps, fixed income, FX markets, etc. And now, if you also look at just the amount of business growth that has been done with this acquisition of announcement, I think they've grown almost 2 to 3x. So that in itself is pretty significant. The interesting point behind GTreasury that I thought was something that plays into this is it means it's an early entry into the corporate treasury management component. And the strategic impact is Fortune 500 companies already using these guys, right? So you think about that, and then you look at the direct access to corporate cash management systems. This gets very intriguing because it positions XRP and RLUSD as a treasury solution. So remember, we've been talking about bridging between legacy systems and blockchain for a long time, but nobody has really positioned at scale outside of this. And of course, the GTreasury acquisition pretty much puts them in a lockstep with how this plays in. Then you look back at Rail, that was a stablecoin powered cross-border payment infrastructure. It enhances RLUSD distribution. It's competition with remittance corridors. So you've already seen that. And you look at standard custody, which was June of 24. That was a strategic impact because I think with standard custody, the key here is enabling banks to tokenize assets on XRPL. And the critical infrastructure is going to be needed for institutional adoption. And I think that is a good segue into how all this could really get significant for Ripple in general. Not forgetting Metaco, of course, that one was one of the first. Obviously, it was 23, 24, and it was a small acquisition. But Citi is using these guys, HSBC, PNP, BNP is using it. And then you look at the enterprise-grade custody solutions they offer right up there with some of the best out there. And they're already integrated with major banks. So I think the point behind this breaking development is, with a U.S. spot prime brokerage launch is perfect timing. And it's a game changer, and there's just too much that starts to play into a bigger picture for Ripple's transformation as from a payments company, because remember, to a full service institutional digital assets platform, Internet of Value. This is what they've got. So they've got custody, prime brokerage, they got spot trading now, which is new with the Ripple Prime launch. And then they've got stablecoins and payments with Ripple Payments, and not to forget treasury management. So I think the prediction of Garlinghouse when he announced these acquisitions to create kind of a unified ecosystem was positioning Ripple as almost like, I don't know, maybe like the Bloomberg terminal of crypto. It's a one-stop institution platform. It's got prime brokerage. All of this is available in the frame. And it really starts to move them into a different kind of company. I think that's the biggest thing, is because these elements individually don't make a lot of sense for most companies, but you start to layer them in, and all of a sudden you start to see the flower begin. And I think that's where we are today. So I'm going to look at a couple of other things around key partnerships. Obviously, you've got BNY Mellon, that's custody. Franklin Templeton, which is going to be on stage here at Ripple Swell. That's DBS Bank. You've got also with DBS Bank, CME Group, which is tokenized fund trading. You've got integration now with BlackRock and VanEck for tokenized funds. So all of that, of course, will show up on stage, and I think that is another factor. Don't forget BlackRock, Maxwell Stein, Franklin Templeton speaking. This is a discussion of tokenized asset integration. Why not? My prediction is they're going to announce RLUSD integration into BlackRock's tokenized money funds. And if that happens, guys, this will be an explosion for sure. The other thing is you could see major asset managers committing to RLUSD for settlement. So more stablecoin news that I think will come out this year. Then you go over to CME Group and Citi representatives that have been there. And I think DBS Bank is going to be there as well. And this is institutional settlement that I think is needed, and for obvious reasons. But my prediction is that you're going to see some major banks announcing adoption for internal treasury operations, RLUSD. And then I think the other thing is that CME will announce RLUSD settlement future contracts. So that's a potential as well. The probable announcements, I don't know if we see RLUSD with these kinds of commitments. Maybe they'll, claim a win at 1 billion in market cap milestone, which would be a big deal. But I think the major bank consortium for cross-border RLUSD settlement as a network would be a big theme coming out of this event. And let's don't forget, Brad Garlinghouse, his stablecoin market could grow 10x in the next 5 years. So think about that where we are now. That could be a $1 to $3 trillion value in RLUSD. You know what that means for the token. The other thing that plays into this is the White House factor. And this is important because we haven't seen a White House representative since 2018. So you've got Patrick J. Witt. This is the executive director on the Presidential Council of Advisors for Digital Assets. He's going to be speaking. So there may be an announcement there, but if at the very least, it signals that the administration's crypto positive stance toward Ripple is intact. And I think that is a more intriguing element. Sometimes these things are right in front of our face and you just don't realize it. The other thing that could play out on this is regulatory positioning. And obviously, we know what's happened with the SEC case, obviously concluding in March. But I think the key here will be this bank charter. This is coming in from the OCC. That was in July of this year. I know it's running out. They still have time. It's not, I know the deadline was here recently, but they still have time to layer this in. And they also, of course, as you know, applied for a Federal Reserve master account access, which I think is going to happen. And if you allowed direct clearing settlement with the Federal Reserve, all of that would make perfect sense. And what it means is traditional banking and industry adoption, ABA, which is the routing system, ICBA concerns all be put to rest. And also, it would put Ripple really in a position to seek out to become a federally chartered bank. And of course, that's where they are right now. So my prediction is that they'll give us an update on the national charter application. They'll also discuss some framework for crypto banks in general, how it's going to work. And I think potential announcement of the approval timeline. That will be the big news coming out of this. And whether it's going to be Monica or Stewart, we'll get some regulatory roadmap indicators as well. Now, the ETF is the elephant in the room because all, if not most of, the applications that have been filed are present. You've got Franklin Templeton there, Bitwise there, 21 shares, Canary Capital, Stevens going to be on stage, Wisdom Tree, Grayscale, all those guys. Then you have these potential periods. And I know Stephen has talked about week after next to get a launch for XRP. I think it will happen. They may give us an announcement on the real date. So the decision deadline for Franklin Templeton also looming. And I think right now you're looking at, this is, in my opinion, is an 80 to 90% probability, if not we're up, full line on where this goes. But the potential of Franklin Templeton, they're on stage, all right? they're speaking there, and the likelihood is them to give an announcement. I think Sandy might do it, might give us some signals, or at least a signal in the approval process, so to gain confidence. And I think that will be another component. And then if they go into institutional XRP demand, meaning they could give us an indicator of what that looks like. And if we get some indicators that the institutional demand is there, get ready, because we could see an explosion on these ETFs. Now, BlackRock's presence is the one that is kind of a wild card, because this is the world's largest asset manager, and they're engaging in the XRP ecosystem. So if Stein comes in and talks about tokenized assets and digital asset integration with Ripple and XRP, this will be big, because will BlackRock file for an XRP ETF? They file for a Bitcoin and Ethereum. Could that be the case? Could Stein come in and say, this is an infrastructure we need to be in? The institutional interest is there. So my conservative prediction would be the future of crypto ETFs with no direct announcements. That would be the conservatives. Just, hey, we're all going to do this. It's going to be great. I think the moderate prediction would be that Franklin Templeton expresses optimism and the approval timeline. And I think my bullish prediction would be surprise announcement that BlackRock has filed an XRP ETF application. That's right. BlackRock filing would be a bullish announcement. My moonshot would be that if we get Paul Atkins, this is a crazy one. If Paul Atkins appears virtually or comes in some way that would align with the approval framework. Now that would be, that would be drama and theater at the highest degree, which is possible because Ripple could try to pull something like that off. Most probable outcome I anticipate is going to be Franklin Templeton and Bitwise and Canary talking about the demand and the vehicles that are setting up for these approvals. So that's my ETF. Last up, actually, I got a couple more prediction areas. One is RippleNet. I think this is going to expand. They'll probably give us some potential around Japan, the Middle East, likelihood in Africa. I know we've got a lot going on with South African banks. And then also the possibility of maybe the Canadian Imperial Bank. Because this has been a long-term partnership that was expanded. So could be some things happening there in terms of how RippleNet will play into this. So much to do here, guys. Prediction, major U.S. bank partnership announcement. That's my big one. I think the potential here is Citi announces a cross-border payment integration with RLUSD. And the likelihood is BNY Mellon does something around expanding custody services. So these are things that, I've been kind of grafting for quite some time of what would happen if, when I saw the agenda come out for at least the initial agenda, and it's changed. I think the speaker diversity starts to lean into some announcements from a lot of these companies, and that would be huge for sure. Another probable announcement with all these banks could be that a top 5 U.S. bank formally joins RippleNet. If that is announced, get ready. Central bank partnership announcement could happen, and I'm talking about beyond, what we've seen in Bhutan and I think, what is it, Palau? Yeah. And then you look at maybe an integration milestone, because there's like 500 financial institutions right now on RippleNet. That could be a big announcement. Or maybe a Stripe level announcement with RLUSD. That would be another major component on payments going into this. So still so much to talk about, because when you look at the XRP ecosystem, especially because of the expansion, there hasn't been a lot of news coming out of that. And I think tokenization and DeFi could get a spot in here. Now, it doesn't look like it from too much of the speaker alignment, but maybe BlackRock's presence could maybe slide into there, because if they get into where BlackRock talks about tokenizing money market funds on the blockchain, and they give a sniff at Ripple or RLUSD playing into this, could be pretty huge. So tokenization initiative, I think maybe BlackRock Franklin announces plans to tokenize funds on XRPL. Maybe DeFi integration with one of them, and then maybe a custody milestone, which could be someone, especially this will come in via Ripple Prime. So that could enable XRPL as a custody asset for institutions. So bigger picture, I think, Garlinghouse's vision for Ledger, for XRP Ledger, as a global hub for tokenized assets is what the theme will be. Cross-chain interoperability with RLUSD as a settlement layer, for sure. New fee mechanisms, maybe, beyond transaction fees, which I think is needed for where they're going. And it's a big one. Now, I've got some probable wow moments. These are, and when I do predictions, I work off of probability, man. It's all probability. So what kind of surprise announcement could you have? What could really wow the crowd? We've already seen this spot brokerage, so that was the first big deal. But I think the major bank will be a big one, an announcement of major bank joining the Ripple net. And I also think that if they have got alignment with $1 billion in market cap for RLUSD from, institutional capital committing, then that will be huge. And maybe huge. It may be one more, and that could be an expansion into a geographical power center like Latin America or maybe even into Europe. So big deals happening as far as kind of in the middle in terms of a little bit more on the outside, maybe a central bank partnership announcement. That would be pretty huge. A major payment processor. Now that's one I think that is on the more realistic side of things. A new custody partnership, I think there'll be many of those announced. And then the lowest probability or moonshot is BlackRock filing an XRP ETF. That would be the one. The SEC representative like Paul Atkins making an appearance in some sort. That would be huge as well. And then maybe, remember, Adena Friedman is there. And there could be a partnership with Nasdaq for tokenized securities as well on XRP Ledger. So those would be more on the outside line of things. And I think, moonshot would be XRP included in the crypto reserve, maybe some sort of thing from the White House being announced, maybe multiple XRP approval timeline confirmations other than just Canary, because a Canary I think is already out there with one, and or maybe a G20 nation saying, hey, we're going to do a CBDC partnership with Ripple. And then, they've already talked about Amazon and that partnership but we haven't seen major tech announcements around RLUSD. That would be another moonshot that I think would come into all this. So I'll give you guys a full update the best I can because there's going to be so much news coming out of this event. And it's going to be a read between the lines scenario, I guarantee you, because Ripple is cagey like that. They are very strategic in how they roll things out, and they do it with intent. And I think that will be the key, is deciphering how this information is coming off the main stage and also out of the areas of these side meetings, because that will probably give us a lot more indicator of where this market is going with Ripple coming into the space at the level that they're coming into the space. So lots of issues, guys, right now. I mean, there's just the list is too long to go into, but hopefully these predictions has given you a full view of where we are. And just to do a quick screen share with you, let's do that. And we'll take a look at the charts real quick, because this is something that I think is important. If you market today, right now, what we're talking about is Bitcoin holding at currently 107 at time of recording. And also ETH slipped down to 3650. So we've seen a little bit of a decline, as you can see right here, in the market over the last 2 weeks. XRP is also in that same boat, a little bit of a decline, but still a higher low. So the key here, especially on the daily time frame, the key here is that we've got net volume sentiment, as you guys can see right there. I'll zoom in on that right here. Let me zoom in on that for you right there. So net volume sentiment is holding around 61%, and overall average is around 52. Those are very high for what we typically see on the MSI trading overlay that we provide on our services. If you guys aren't in the Forge membership, you should be. because you'll get that for your TradingView account. It gives you some indicators that are outside the traditional indicators because we look at primarily sentiment. But those are the updates for you. Hopefully we'll get more. Actually, there will be much more this week, so be on the lookout. I'll try to drop as many as I can, and we'll get you in on all of that. Don't miss it. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, make sure and do it right now. Take some time. Hit that little bell, because sometimes we're getting ready to start going live with you guys. So that'll be another integration capability. And if you have a guest or someone that you feel like we should be interviewing for this podcast, hit me on DMs. It's just @PaulBaron over on Twitter. You guys can find me there. That's the best place. I'll leave them open for you. And I take a lot of requests through there. I flip it over to our producers, and they give us kind of the rundown. We do a full background and vetting of everybody that comes on the show. So it's a little tough to get in the lineup, but if they're quality, they will make it into the lineup. And I'll catch you soon right here on the XRP podcast. Take care.